Hey, what's up guys? Matt here with Fix Anything Save Money. Today we're going to be showing you how to replace the fuel line on this Poulan WT200 Wild Thing blower slash vac. So we're going to be making a whole bunch of videos on this blower. It needs a whole bunch. You can see I cleaned it up nice. But pretty much we're going to be replacing the carb, doing a tune-up, and then doing a fuel line. So I'm going to be making videos on all those things. This video is going to be the fuel line replacement because the fuel line going from one of the lines on the carburetor is dry rotted and broke, which I noticed that when I was going to swap the carburetor. So before we do the carburetor swap, we're going to replace the fuel line. And on these, it's kind of a pain in the butt because the gas tank isn't exposed. It's kind of tucked into this housing. So we're gonna need to remove a bunch of bolts, and then we're gonna show you the best way to kind of get the fuel lines in. So stick with me and we're going to show you this real quick. Okay, so the things we're going to need for this are a T20 and a T25 driver. This is a T25 driver. So we're just going to go on this side of it and remove this bolt and this bolt to take off this cover. Okay, and I kind of like to just put the screws back in, and we'll show you how this cover goes back on, because you can see there's these little clips right there, and they just tuck up into here like that. When you go to put it back in, put it in with those clips first and then kind of push it down. But we'll show you that when we go to reassemble it. And we're going to be using this kit from a company called Hypa. They give you everything you're going to need to get your machine back up and running. You can see the fuel lines we're going to be using, and then a carburetor, spark plug, gaskets, and a fuel filter. And they also even give you a little priming bulb in there. So for this video, we're just going to be pretty much using these fuel lines. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and remove these bolts. We have one here, and then we have one in here, one here, one in here for the handle, one here, one here, one here, and one here. Okay. And I've never done a repair on this exact machine. I've done it on other Poulan blowers, so I'm assuming it's the same, but if not, we will kind of figure it out as we're going here. And so far, these are all T25s. It's a good idea to empty your gas tank before you do this. This already has an empty tank. So I like to just get like an oil catch pan, take the gas cap off and tip it upside down. Press the priming bulb a couple of times, drain all the fuel out of the carburetor, and then just empty it one more time. So far these are all the same screws. These are all T25s. And if we come across any other sizes, we'll kind of set them off and make a note where they go. And you can see I already took the blower hose off just to kind of have some more range of motion. So to do that, you just loosen this and then just pull it right out. But I think we're going to have to remove this fully. So we'll just loosen this all the way, and we should be able to take it right out. And then I like to put everything kind of back together. So we'll just set that off to the side. Okay, so we have that apart. We have all the screws out. I think we're gonna have to take this off and get to a screw back in here, but we'll see real quick once we start tearing it apart a little bit more. And then we're going to have to also come under here and get a flathead. And you could see this there's a little piece of metal in here. It's kind of dirty, you can't see. But if you press that in, that's going to allow this to lift up. So we'll get a screwdriver real quick and do that. Okay, we have our flathead, and we're just going to press in on this while we're pulling it this way, this black piece. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, so that's how it goes. So take the screwdriver and press that tab up, and then just open it. And that's what we were pressing up. We were just pressing that up like that. And then it just clicks back into place. Hopefully you could see that on camera. And this is filthy under here. Okay. So now we want to take off this piece right here. And that's held in. We already took this screw out right here. Right there. We already took that screw out. So all we should have to do is just remove this spring right here. And we'll show you that spring and kind of how it looks. So we'll take this spring off. Okay. And then it goes back in just like this. This little hook right here, this piece right here, goes underneath this black piece. And then they sit up like that. Okay. So there's our spring. And now we should be able to take this apart. Okay, so then all I did was just kind of press on that. And you can see how that fits in with these two pieces here. They go into here and in here. So you kind of have to open it to do that. Let me see if I can get it back in and show you again. Like I said, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so just kind of open it up from these two pieces right here. Open it up, and then just kind of pull it out. Okay. So now, let's see what else we have. I believe we're gonna have to take these two screws out in here. Let's see if they're T25s. And they are. But they're tight. Okay, I just grabbed a napkin because my hands are a little greasy and they're slipping on this. Okay. And these are super tight. I don't know if they'll be that tight on yours, but they were really tight. But these are T25s. They're probably just a little rusted on there, I bet. Okay, so let's just take note of all this. The way this goes back on, you can see it like that. And like I said, I like to leave everything in place. So that's how it would go back on with that little guard right here. So we're just gonna set that right here. Okay, so now we are able to access the screw up in here. So we're gonna remove that. Okay. And then the last one we're going to remove is the one right in here. And that should let us open up this plastic piece. Okay, there's our last one there. So there's one right in here too. Okay. So now this plastic piece comes right off. And this is a good time to clean all this up. You could clean up the inside. And we'll set that off to the side here. And you could see how this is going to give us access to the fuel tank. And then we could just take this handle off for now. You can see how that goes on. It just goes on like that over these two knobs right here. So we could take that off for now. Okay. And then our tank should come right out. I just want you to take note of the pull cord and this little ring right here. That's going to go right into this circle here. So we could just kind of set that in there for now, if it'll stay. And it won't. So we could just put that right there for now. Okay. And then we're just going to pull our tank right out. And you could see there's our broken line. And then we're just going to actually pull. Or maybe what we'll do is just cut this right here. We'll grab a pair of scissors, cut that right there. Okay, so we just grabbed a pair of scissors. We're just going to cut this because we're going to replace them both. Okay, and then we could take this off. And you could see here, this blue line is just the overflow that dumps back into the tank. So we could pull this straight out. And you can see it just kind of broke off in there. So just make sure that hole's clear. And then with this one, this is connected to our fuel filter. Okay, so we could just pull that right out and then just empty out anything that's in the tank. Okay. Okay, so now I want to show you this. We're going to take the new fuel lines. You can see here we had one brown and one green on the original, but on this we're going to be using these fuel lines that Hypa provides. So just take note of the different diameters. Okay, so for this, the smaller diameter we're going to use to attach our fuel filter, and the larger diameter we're going to be using for our breather. Because you can see here, this hole right here, that goes in very easily, which we don't want actually. We want it to be a very snug fit. And on here you could see even the smaller diameter isn't going to want to go into that hole. That hole is drilled smaller. We want these to be super tight so that fuel doesn't leak. So we're going to be using the smaller diameter onto our fuel filter and the larger diameter into our overflow that's going to dump fuel back in. Okay, so the best way I found to get these to work, take scissors and be careful. So the goal is to cut this line in half. And just be careful you don't cut yourself, and give yourself enough room because I'll show you what we're going to do real quick. So we're going to go up a few inches here. They give you a lot of line, a lot of fuel line to work with. Okay, maybe we'll even go up a little bit higher than that. Okay, so you can see here we have our line split, and then all we're going to do is cut this in half. My scissors aren't very sharp, which is kind of a pain. And you could do this with a knife of some sort. I found this easiest to do with a pair of scissors. The end result, you want it to look like this. You want it to just be half the line. So you just cut it in half, and then, right here is normal size. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our line And we're going to be able to then put it in here and just feed it down. Okay. And then you could take a pair of pliers and you could actually pull the line through. Okay, so we got a pair of pliers, and then we're just going to, you can see it right in there. We're just going to pull this through. So just pull this through until you have where it's not cut anymore. So there's our cut piece, and then we're just going to snip it just above the cut piece. Okay, we could discard that. So now we have this long piece. This is our breather tube. So we're just going to pull it back up and just leave it hanging down the tank about an inch. Just kind of estimate, look in there. You just want that hanging down a little bit, about an inch, inch and a half down in there. Okay. So now we have that done. And then we're going to do the same exact thing with this smaller diameter. And this is going to hook onto our fuel filter. So since we're here, I'm going to use, and I already have the HYPA kit, I'm going to use the new fuel filter. And just be very careful. Wear gloves if you want. When you're doing this, you don't want to cut yourself on accident here. And give yourself a lot of room. They give you plenty of fuel line here, so give yourself enough so that you're not reaching in like crazy with the pliers. Okay, so there's that, and then we're just going to do the same thing where we cut this piece. So we're just going to cut it in half, then be careful. Okay, so you can see we have this whole piece is half of the line. And then we're going to put this into here. And honestly, I don't think it really matters all that much if you use the same size fuel line. You just want the seal to be super tight. In here. You don't want fuel leaking out of here, because fuel will bubble out and you'll have a huge fuel leak, and this will all be for nothing. So you can see the line in there. We're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to grab it, pull, and we're just going to pull it down. Like that. And then again, we're just going to snip off any piece that we cut, because we want, we don't want half a fuel line here. So there's our full fuel line, right like that. And then we're going to take our new fuel filter from HYPA, and we're just going to fit this over. So just keep pushing that in until the fuel line is pretty much flush right here with the base of it. And you can see it does go. You want it to be very tight. Okay, so that's flush with this base now. And then we could just drop this into the tank, and you could kind of, you could pull this up a little bit. Okay, but you want that extra room in there. You want the fuel filter sitting on the bottom of the tank like that. Okay, and now we're ready to assemble everything back together. You can take this, you can put this cap back on now. tighten that down, and it's gonna go in just like this. And you could take these, I like to leave them long because why not? And you could just stuff them into, I don't know if you can see it, we'll take this out. You're gonna stuff them into this hole right here. You could probably do that now. And then when we go to change the carb, these will already be accessible. And we'll know that the small one is going to go onto the bottom nozzle of the carburetor, and the top is going to go onto the top. We can just kind of stuff those in there, and when we go to pull them, they'll already be right there. And that way we know we have enough line. Okay, so we have the fuel tank in, we have our lines fed through that hole that we talked about, and then we have the excess just kind of sitting there. Because when we change the carburetor, we're just gonna pull that right out. Now we can go ahead and start putting everything back together. So for this, I like to kind of just tip it up like that. Take your pull start. Get that seated. It's not gonna wanna sit. Just kind of press it down in there until it stays. Or we could do that later, but we're gonna put our handle back on. So our handle is gonna go onto these knobs right like that. And it goes like that. Then we're going to tip it up. And hopefully we could get this to stay so that I could kind of show you. Okay. Well, that's not going to stay. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put this in, and then we're going to pull this cord through and get it seated. And then we're just going to put the cover on, fit it over like that. Make sure everything is sitting flush, and that's what it should look like on your handle. Okay, and you can see we're sitting flush everywhere. Everything's connected. So what I like to do now is take a screw and put it right into here so that this doesn't come undone. You don't want that pull start coming apart as you're putting everything back together. So I like to just start with this screw. Okay, now that's together. We have our handle in. Everything is sitting flush. So we could go ahead and start putting some of these screws back in. We'll put the tube in that sit behind the muffler. We'll put those in first. There's one. There's two. And I apologize, this video is taking a long time. I mean, this is one of the harder fuel line replacements on a small engine just because you have to take apart so much, as you could see. So, not easy if the fuel lines get dry rotted. And then we'll walk you through all these screws one more time so that you know. Because chances are, like I did, you're going to miss one. And if this cover doesn't initially come off, you know, pretty easily, then you're probably missing a screw somewhere. Okay. But these are nice because for the most part, they're all the same size and they're all T25s. So really all you need to do this repair is, you know, a T25 driver, a flathead, pair of needle nose, pair of scissors, and I mean, that's really it. Okay, we got that all together. Now we can take our muffler and go in here and just kind of get these screws out as long as you can. Get them to be sticking out as much as you can from that plate. Okay, so you can see what it looks like. It's going through that plate, and it's going to sit just like that and screw into these two holes. Okay, so kind of set that in there. Get them started. And then I like to tighten these down like you would lug nuts. Kind of go a little bit on each one so that nothing binds up. Okay, and then we're just gonna grab a rag because my hands are super greasy, so I can't really tighten things down that well. Okay, muffler's back on. We put our screws in behind here. These two screws are in. Now we're just going to put this back together. And to do this, we might need to loosen this screw that we took off just to get it to open up a little bit here, but we'll see. It's gonna open, I think. But if it doesn't, you could always, so all we're doing is we're sticking these pegs into these holes right here, doing this one first, and then we're just gonna kind of open this up to get the other one in. And if you need to loosen some screws to give yourself some more leeway, then by all means loosen some stuff up. Okay, we got those two in. So it definitely would have helped if we loosened this screw a little bit, but regardless, we got them in. Okay, we can take our spring, and this is gonna go in just like this, and we'll show you. So this piece right here that we showed you is gonna go underneath this black flap right here. So we're just gonna kind of fit it in like that. So there's what it should look like. You have the little tail of the spring on each piece here, and then that black piece underneath. Okay, and then we go ahead and close this. That latches nicely. So now we could go ahead and put the rest of the screws in. We have one here. And if you do loosen them to get that little cover on, make sure you remember to tighten everything back down. We have that one, then we have this one. So really, the screws on this, we'll point them out again. We have one in here, one here, one here, 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 and then two behind the muffler. I mean, really, you could access this one now, but to get to this one, you have to remove the muffler. Okay, and then we'll put our clamp back on for our hose. And that goes on just like that. Slide it in, tighten it down a little bit, and we'll put our hose back on later, but I don't think I need to show that. That just slides in and you tighten it down. And the last thing is our muffler cover. Like I said, we're just going to take these two knobs right here, stick them in, slide this right down, and then we're just going to tighten down these. And be sure to subscribe. I'm going to show you how to remove the actual carburetor. I'll already have those fuel lines in place. Probably when you see the carburetor video, I'll have the lines hooked up already, but I mean, you just pull them apart. But check the carburetor video out because I'm going to be replacing the carburetor as well. But that is how you replace the fuel lines on this. And like I said, when you go to take these covers off, your fuel lines are going to be accessible. You'll just take your old carburetor off, hook your new lines up. We're going to put the skinnier, thinner fuel line that's hooked to the fuel filter on the bottom nozzle of the carburetor. So that would go right here when you're looking at it. And then our overflow is going to go on this top. So when you press this, any excess fuel in the carburetor is going to drain back through this nozzle right here into the tank. But subscribe to the channel. If this video helped you out, be sure to watch the carburetor video on this. I'm going to be putting that up probably today. And yeah, guys, let me know if you have any questions at all. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Check out all my other tool DIY videos. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.